All right.
Hey Rick, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Jeff. How are you?
Doing pretty good. Thank you for joining me on Indispensable Appraisers podcast.
Great.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, Rick.
Well, to start off, I'm a Florida native. I don't know how many of those there are around, but I was born and raised in Miami area and went to school to that other school, University of Florida. Go Gators. I got to get that in. Um, at the point of when I graduated, I settled in Tampa Bay area, married my college sweetheart, 45 years now, and started actually, I have a degree in building construction from Florida and started building buildings initially. Worked for Austin West Shore and built some buildings for Al Austin, a couple of parking garages. The Tampa Marriott Hotel was one of my projects, and some apartment buildings and Price Waterhouse warehouse. And then my wife decided to take a appraisal class and drug me along at Acker College. And so I took this appraisal class and I enjoyed the class. And I said, wow, you can get paid for having an opinion. I said, that sounds like a good job. You know, construction industry was slow. And so I ended up starting my appraisal career that way in 1983. I started with Cash and Associates. I don't know if you knew Tom, but it probably predates your time in 1983, but we built our appraisal company to the largest appraisal company in Pinellas County and specialized in plan unit developments, single family, residential, work for a number of developers, Ruttenberg, Maconi Homes, and actually did several assignments with your wife, Brenda. I worked for her firm for a couple of years when it was Pearson Doring Appraisals off of Ehrlich Road. So after that, I got involved in the industry with Calhoun and Associates, who did litigation appraisal work, eminent domain, and did that for quite a few years. We had 4 offices, about 3,000 cases. We represented property owners, and we did that throughout Florida. And then I have celebrated my 30th year in business this year, doing the same kind of work, although it is now diversified a little bit more into transaction work, brokerage, consulting work, appraisals for litigation. So that gives you a pretty thorough background of where we're at. Professionally, I'm president-elect for the local CCIM group here in Florida that covers 11 counties. So we have quite a vibrant organization of about 270 people.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for the intro. I hate to say I was a FSU Seminole.
Yeah, well, that's why I had to get my Go Gators in there.
And
That's okay. Yeah,
congrats
that's
on
fine. That's fine. I want you guys to win, except for the last game when you play us.
Yeah, definitely. And congrats on the 45 years. That's awesome. Hey,
Yes.
first question is in the evaluation space, what are we winning at? What are we doing a decent job at?
Well, there are quite a few things that we are doing right. We have had quite a bit of technology integration. You know, when I started off, and matter of fact, taking me back to the Brenda Doring, Pearson Doring, my first computer was an Epson computer with floppy disks. So we have come from there, and we were so excited because we were typing out our appraisal reports, and now we have online information. We have spreadsheets we can do. We used to have to do all that by hand. So I've seen us come decades ahead, and now we're entering an era that is even going to go further with automated valuation models and artificial intelligence and things of that nature. So that's one of the things that I think that has really come along, not only for our industry, but other industry. The other is we've had some enhanced data availability. You know, for instance, we have some gathering of data that is now compiled, like the DOT has their own data system that appraisers can choose to use. There's data available from a multitude of sources. One example is Pinellas County has redone their website, so now that has really enhanced the availability of data, where I remember going to the courthouse, pulling microfiche, bringing donuts for the staff there so that I could get, somebody to help me do the research there. So we have come a long way in the data. Regulatory improvements we've had also. Some of those are for the good and some of those are not so good. I think we're probably are one of the most regulated industries that I know of. But that helps with the appraisal process and integrity. Professional development is another area I think we've done pretty well on, but that really needs to be improved. And I'll get into that later. Consumer awareness, I think we've really come a long way with consumer awareness. Before, a person didn't know what an appraiser did or how valuation worked. Today, there are people who really know appraisal well because they deal in that industry. And in fact, some of the attorneys that I've dealt with in litigation, they know more than some of the appraisers that I know. So, things have come a long way. Also, diversification of services is another area that I think, people have branched out. You just don't do an appraisal for a value and then you're done. As an example, there's all kind of work that can be done. You can have work for estates. You can do work for the banks. You can do litigation appraisal work like I have done. You can do work for assessments and appeals. So there is more of a diversification. So overall, I think the industry is winning with some of those positive things.
Oh, I appreciate that. And what are our greatest challenges right now?
Well, our greatest challenges, I think, in some way, is the technology. There's a technology, what I call technology disruption happening. You have some of these AVMs, automated valuation models out there, and artificial intelligence that are pumping out these valuations that may or may not be accurate, and you really don't know, if they're accurate or not, without doing some deep research on that. Once an artificial model pulls something in from the internet, it may be totally way off, and unless you're checking those things, it's tough to know whether that's accurate or not. There's certainly benefits to this, but those are going to be a challenge to the standard appraisal methods. I see a lot of banks, especially in light of the fact that the professional development, and a lot of people are not going into appraising like they did before. That's going to be more of a challenge. We also have regulatory changes that are happening. I just have taken, I'm about 23 hours into my 30 hours of continuing ed on appraisal. And one of the regulatory changes that are coming up is this request for value, where they can reconsideration of value, ROV. And you probably have run into that. Well, now they're going to formalize it as of August 29th, 2024. It's my understanding that Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HUD, and some of these on the residential side, I don't know how this is going to go into the commercial side, but right now they're going to be able to make official requests, and the lender is going to have to write it up and review it, but they are going to be able to make an official request for an ROV, a reconsideration of value. Well, not only are they going to be able to do that, but they're going to be able to take that, and if it's egregious enough and they don't feel it's right, they're going to turn that into the appraisal board. So now we're going to even be more regulated on something. And let's say your valuation was fine, but you didn't do something that was in violation of USPAP. Well, now, even though the value is fine, you're subject to that. So that's going to be something we're going to have to keep our eye on, because I know we went through a series with DOT where they were turning in appraisers just to turn them in, just to see if it would stick. And we're hoping that that won't happen here. There has to be some regulation on the regulators, I guess, is what it comes down to. Once again, the appraiser shortage, it's evident. I just, an example of that, I went and taught as a guest lecturer at a USF class a couple months ago with David Bashirs, has an appraiser class in Tampa. And at the conclusion of, I had to do the reconciliation of value was my part. But I asked at the end, because I'm very curious, how many people want to be appraisers? Raise your hand. And so 2 people raised their hand. Now this is a class of about 30. Then I asked, well, how many people want to go into real estate business, the real estate business? About 3/4 of the people raised their hand. So we have a situation where the attractiveness of being in commercial real estate and the flexibility of that is overshadowing some of the technical, the people that would be in the technical business. So that was an interesting quick survey that I took, and now those were finance majors, so not all of them were going to be in the real estate business, but it was an appraisal class, so obviously they were interested in real estate. And then there's going to be some pressure on fees, and this ties back into the appraiser shortage. If you can't make enough money, why are you going to go into that kind of business? The pressure on fees is going to come from these automated valuation models that they can do cheaper, quicker, faster. So we have to be careful on how there's a balance there. And then the next thing that I see as a challenge coming up, and I'm sure I'm going to face this. I'm a special magistrate for Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Pasco counties for tax assessment appeals. Market volatility. As the market fluctuates, it becomes more difficult. And I realize this more and more as I do transactional work, looking into the future versus taking the data from the past and trying to project that into the future. Appraisers by nature tend to be conservative because in a increasing market, if you use sales from last year, you're obviously going to be behind the 8 ball. And if you don't do some type of market adjustments, which I've seen a lot of appraisers not make a market adjustment, even though it's a year old with an advancing market, you're not going to even be close to what the listings and things of that nature are today and what things are selling for. And I've gotten a better appreciation doing some transactions with investors on what they are looking for and how they view it. They don't view it anywhere like what appraisers do. And we're estimating market value with data that may or may not be current. So that's a challenge, just the market volatility there. And then, getting back to the legal and liability risks, there's going to be actually possibly more risk going forward with all these regulations, like the one on the reconsideration of value and things of that nature. And the other last one, we always want to make sure that we have trust from the public. So the public perception and trust is something that we should always keep in mind and try to enhance going forward.
And going forward, some of the things you mentioned, ABMs, ROVs, market volatility, looking forward, how do we improve our valuation space?
Well, I think that there are several things that we can do. One of the things is recruitment of professionals. We have to find out how to recruit professionals and make it attractive to them, because that is critical to the longevity of the appraisal industry. If the financial industry finds that we cannot supply enough appraisers to do the work, and it takes so long and it's so expensive, there are going to be alternatives to evaluation. They've already increased the amount, as an example, for a single family that they have to have an appraisal. They can do some things like if somebody's getting a 50% a loan to value, it's a no-brainer. They can go the tax record, and if it makes it by the tax record, which tends to be conservative, not always, by the way, because the property appraiser can assess it up to 100% of market value, and they're getting closer every year. But it does lend itself to that. So we have to recruit these professionals. I can't remember. I was at a Appraisal Institute meeting, and they were given as like the average age of the commercial appraisers and MAIs and stuff, and I think it was like 62. Well, we have to bring that average age down, and I am seeing more young professionals enter the market, and maybe you can address that too, if you're seeing that. I don't know if you're seeing that as well, Jeff.
I'm seeing some, but it's a very small number. I think to your point, the classroom example you gave really illustrated we like CRE, or at least real estate in general, as much as the student can comprehend what that really means.
Right.
Versus you're talking with David Bashirs about specifically our industry, and there's two hands versus 3/4 of the whole room, which means we're not doing a good job of getting the message out. And I think the lack of clarity, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing this podcast, is that it's a great industry. It's provided a livelihood for me, a livelihood for you, and a lot of really good people. And I don't think we get our story out. So I think part of that example is I don't think there's a lot of young people. There's some. Let me rephrase that. But I would say there's maybe a dozen per market. I mean, how many young appraisers do you see in the Tampa Bay area? A dozen?
Not many, and some are actually converting over. I see them more at the CCIM meetings too, instead of the
Yeah,
Appraisal Institute meetings, so
yeah,
that's
it's
part of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's a perception of where they can make money. But talking about money, you mentioned earlier, if you want to talk about blockchain, how that relates to our space.
Yeah, I was going to get into that on my next point here. Actually, we need to focus more on technology and innovation, because I really see that as the future. Now that we have the computing power to do it, I think what we're going to see is some change. As an example, a lot of banks may not even require interior inspections. Now, some of that's residential oriented. The commercial, I think, is a little different. We're going to see virtual inspections. We have people can do aerials. They can actually fly, over a property now pretty inexpensively with, different devices. And I think that in looking at this, that the remote inspection is going to occur. However, I will say this. That's one of the things that computers can't do, is go out to our property, assess it, and also the quality of adjustment issue when you're making adjustments and consideration. As a machine can mimic that, but they cannot replace a human, and not yet. So I think we're good, at least maybe in my lifetime, maybe not in yours, or the younger generation. But right now, I think that's to our advantage. The blockchain issue, yeah, that's a good point. We're going to see a big change in technology, and just for some people who don't know what blockchain is, it's basically like the cyber digital currency. It's a series of computers that house data that cannot be modified. So in the appraisal application, it would be housing appraisal values that were done by professionals in throughout the country, throughout the world. And by doing that, it starts to be able to be interpreted, and you get a more accurate valuation. And an example of that would be the TREP report. Now, the TREP report has previous appraisals, what the financing was, the mortgage. I'm seeing that show up as an example at hearings for the Value Adjustment Board. And, if a petitioner comes in and they just finance the property for $20 million, and, they're saying that the value is $10 million, that's already showing up. And that's some of the mass data, information that's being actually used today. They are calling it the Internet of Value, is what the term is, which I thought was an interesting term. It's the internet but it's value. It's the internet of value because it can't be modified. Only certain people can modify that data. The other thing is technology integration, getting back to the technology issue. We're going to see advanced software using AI to do property inspections, to do neighborhood write-ups, to do area analysis. I remember when I was with Cashin and Associates, what I dreaded every year is redoing our area analysis. You have to do it every year. You have to update the demographics. You have to do all those things. You have to pull all these reports together. And it really, you don't get paid for it except through the distribution of your appraisals throughout the year. And then that had to be updated. Well, now that kind of thing can be instantaneous. You can get information not only today, but projections that go out the next couple of years. So we're going to see a lot of advancement in that area. And, it's going to, I think, help with the modeling and the accuracy of valuations. We're also going to see, I believe, some mobile apps that are, basically you're going to be able to have a tablet out there collecting data, and it will facilitate the write-up of the property inspection and all of that information. And once this is put in a format that can be usable, it could be as simple as click, 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 click. And, you have a basis. And by the way, I just wanted to let you know, some of these points that I brought up was from artificial intelligence. Okay. I did my own chat GBT, and it really assists in those kind of things. So you have to realize the power of that technology, but how to use it. The other thing is improved data accuracy. We want to ensure that the appraisers have access to accurate, up-to-date information, including recent sales and market trends. That can be done through technology as well. And I think we need to improve on the verification process. A lot of people use CoStar and LoopNet and different things, and as much as they try to verify this stuff, and you use it as well, there's always some kind of error that they use the wrong property or, those kind of things. So the verification process, and I think through the blockchain type technology, is going to help in all of this. The other thing that we need to take a look at is maybe standardizing appraisals and data, and probably more so the data. If you have unified databases where all of this stuff is being collected, it can sort out the differentials. So if 3 people submitted a comp and all of them were accurate, and then somebody wrote up a comparable property and had the wrong information, it's going to sort that out. So I think a unified database, as we go forward, we're going to see more and more of those. And that's going to help because let's face it, what we do, we can write up a report in a couple of days, but the data may take us weeks to verify, depending on the complexity of the assignment. And I'm not talking about verifying it by just saying public records, actually verifying it. Because you and I know that when you call on a property, you find out a lot more on that property and what happened in that transaction and what the motivations were between the buyer and the seller. And it's amazing what you'll find out once you're verifying them properly. And then, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just had one last question, if that's all right.
Sure.
And maybe that's not there, but when you're talking about blockchain, is there any opportunity, or is it a threat for appraisers? And let's talk about chief appraiser from the bank's point of view. How does blockchain fit into the future evaluation, or does it? And the same thing from banking. Is it a threat or an opportunity?
Well, I think it's both. It's an opportunity, for some applications, and then we just have to be careful on relying on that solely, because there is this human element of what I was talking about before, the analyzing the quality of a sale and comparing it to the subject property, going out and looking, I can take a picture and it will look great. And then you go out there and you don't realize that this property is in the middle and right next to a dump. Well, that doesn't show up in the picture. Okay, so these are the kind of things, and if it influences value, then that's something that an appraiser, I think, will always be needed. So that's one of the things. And in the standardization area, the other thing is a thing called benchmarking. Benchmarking is where there are appraisal guidelines to the point where if you follow them properly, two appraisers should be within a reasonable range of value. Now, I question that to some degree because I know, as an example, being involved in appraisals that involve damages and things of that nature with DOT, it could be a 180. I think there are damages to a property. Another appraiser says there's no damages. It's not the part that's taken, that's the big deal. Or differences in highest and best use. That's another area that you have a big sway on opinion or value opinions from appraisers. But I think that we can standardize a little bit more on that. And then I think collaboration among professionals. I've always tried to collaborate with other professionals, and this means other brokers, even title companies, attorneys. And if I notice that there is a particular architect or engineer or something that is involved, I ask for the plans. And a lot of times you can get those. You can get surveys. You can collaborate with other people. Excuse me. Probably one of the last. Well, there's two other areas. Enhanced training and specialization. I do see that we can always enhance on more training, and we're going to need that for the technology, especially to make sure we're using it properly. That's one area that I think, I mean, we get enough education by just continuing ed and whatnot, but what I'm talking about is higher level education to apply what we know as appraisers, and the experienced appraisers are really going to benefit from this if they'll take, the time to do the education. And then I do believe that we're going to see even more specialization in the appraisal area, much like the real estate area. People specialize in selling office buildings or industrial or shopping centers, ALFs. We're going to see more of that. So once you're in that area, you are going to be an expert in it, and you're not going to be producing valuations that are far-fetched if you're doing your job properly. And then the final area, which I think we've done a pretty good job but can do better, is consumer education and public awareness. We can educate consumers about the appraisal process, what we have to go through. Can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure you've heard it too, you're somewhere and somebody calls you up, hey, I just want to know what it's worth. I don't need an appraisal. Well, to know what it's worth, I got to do an appraisal. I have to finish an appraisal or at least do preliminary research to know where the range is. So we do have to educate some of our consumers on that area and make sure that they understand that. But by implementing all these, I think we can, have a more efficient, accurate appraisal work coming out and be trustworthy among the public and everybody involved.
Well, Rick, I definitely appreciate your time today.
Oh, well, thank you, Jeff. It was a nice call, and it was nice seeing you again, and say hello to Brenda.
I will do.
Thank you.